Okay, we are live. Hello, and we're so excited that you're joining us. Please share this broadcast with your friends and networks now. As you're watching, you can write comments or questions. My name is Rick Ulfik, and I'm founder of We the World and the We campaign at we.net. 16 years ago, we launched 11 Days of Global Unity, 11 Ways to Change the World, with many visionary thinkers and activists participating over the years, including Desmond Tutu, Jane Goodall, Deepak Chopra, Eve Ensler, Bill McKibben, and many, many others. You can find out more by going to we.net. And you can collaborate with us by going to we.net/partner. So today on the Welcome to We show, we have three goals: to inspire, inform, and involve you in creating a world that works for all. That's three I's that make a we. So we can go from a me society to a we society. And on this show, we ask the question, what can we do together that we can't do on our own? Today, we'll be discussing climate action for peace, spiritual dimensions with Sue Blythe, my wonderful co-host, and today's featured guests, ShaRon, Ria, Dot Maver, Hoda, Mahmoudi, and Joshua Basofin. Okay, let's bring in my co-host, Sue Blythe, who originally had the idea for this monthly show. Sue Blythe is doing what she can to make a sustainable, just, and peaceful world for her 8 grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. She is the founder of the Climate Collaboratory, a pilot project of We the World and the University of Florida Extension. Welcome to the broadcast, Sue Blythe.
Thank you, Rick. It's really exciting to be here tonight. I'm just so pleased that we have the panelists coming together who can help us to take a look at the spiritual dimensions of climate action. And it's just a really wonderful way to approach this, that we've really come a long way in the last 2 years. It was in 2019, 2018 that we first started this idea of a climate collaboratory. And in 2019, when the United Nations Secretary General named the International Day of Peace theme, climate action for peace, it just seemed like a wonderful opportunity to establish what we now call the Climate Collaboratory as a pilot project with We the World and the University of Florida Extension. And so what we've been developing is a community-wide climate conversation. We're pilot testing it in Florida and bringing in a global network of support. And so that some of the people that we'll be talking to today are helping to bring this spiritual dimension into the peacemaking. And for me, what's important is the interfaith piece of this, so that as we bring people of different faiths together to work on the common, working for the common good, is just an opportunity to create new solutions for the climate crisis and the social and environmental challenges that we're living in. So tonight we're going to talk with 4 people and we can get their take on what I consider the kind of the key element of this whole issue of climate action for peace. And this is a statement from the Earth Charter, which is a statement of values and ethics for a sustainable future, that asks us to recognize that peace is the wholeness of creating right relationships with oneself, other persons, other cultures, other life, Earth, and the larger whole of which all are a part. So let's meet our guests and see how they promote the spiritual dimensions of climate action for peace. And so let's start with my friend ShaRon, who is a passionate woman on a serious mission to make the world a better place. She's founder of a global movement called No Judgment, Just Love, whose mission is to inspire us all to live together with unconditional allowance, one courageous action at a time. She's an expert in parenting solutions for co-parenting after divorce, single fathers, parents raising teens, and every caregiver committed to raising happy, well-adjusted children of any age. And so, ShaRon, I'm just so excited that you're here tonight. And tell us about your work with No Judgment, Just Love, and how that supports that inner climate that we all need to care for people and planet.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sue and Rick, for the We Show. I'm very honored to be here, and I can't wait to meet the other panelists. Welcome. I am here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I am a family relationship coach. And the foundation of the way I coach, as well as the way I live, is the global message of no judgment, just love. And what that means is to be able to choose to move beyond the things that divide us in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions. So we give ourselves the opportunity to lead with love. And I truly think and know from experience that this will help us relate to each other better. Now, the climate of ourselves internally is such a precursor to recognizing the climate in anything else, including our earth. Because what we carry within us is what we give to the world. And my purpose in this life is to help people uncover their true and authentic self, even in the midst of a lot of judgment, because we do judge, right? All the time, every day, about everything. And that's okay, because that's being human. So I'm not asking with no judgment to not be human. I'm asking to be human and move beyond that, to really recognize you do have a climate within you. You do have a sense about how you want to show up in the world. And when you can allow less judgment inside your head about yourself, that climate increases to a beautiful place. And then once you have something, then you can give it. And so now you can look out into the world and see the people around you and how you can allow them with less judgment and more allowance to be themselves. What a world. You are muted, dear Sue.
So I am. Thank you.
What a world. And, you know, even before we go forward, ShaRon, you know, you're also, besides doing that, you're working with We the World as one of the coordinators of the 11 campaigns for change.
Yes, I am. I am the coordinator of Unity. How apropos, yes? And I cannot wait to be fully engaged in that activity with lots of partners around the world to see how we together can be a we.
Yeah. So one of the things we'll be doing starting in January is working on themes for Martin Luther King. And ShaRon and I are hoping to get a number of workshops and activities during that time, taking this idea of no judgment, just love, and really applying it in some interesting ways. ShaRon, tell us a little about your comfy couch and how that.
Oh,
how that
well, I'm sitting in my kitchen, and right over there in my living room is a big gray down couch that when I have clients over, they come and they just sink in, they put their feet up, And I've heard over the years that I've done this, you have such a comfy couch. And, and then they proceed to share their inner concerns and fears and thoughts with just the freedom of, as if no one was there, but obviously I'm there to listen. So I have created a format, sort of a container, to have difficult conversations about race, about injustice, about climate, about so many things, trauma that our young people are experiencing, trying to go to school online or being not safe in their communities. And what I know is that we don't have enough opportunity in this world to talk freely about what is in our heart, what our dreams are, and what our fears are. Because inevitably somebody has an opinion and they want to interrupt us, or they want to agree with us, or they want to debate what we have to say. And that interrupts the flow of your thoughts. And so with the comfy couch conversations, it's a safe space for people to be heard and to speak. So when one person is speaking, everyone else is actively listening, because we do learn from each other and what experiences they have. And then only if the person that's speaking invites some comment do we make a comment. Otherwise, we say thank you and move to the next person.
And that, my dear, is the essence of this climate conversation that we want to have. And being able to go deep into the feelings that each of us has about how scary the climate crisis is. That it is enough to shut people down unless they do have a safe space in which to address these issues. And so we're working with other friends on a crafting your climate story. And so we'll be developing this in the months to come and hope that we can do some collaboration with our other partners here. And so let me introduce, and thank you so much, ShaRon.
Thank you, Sue.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Maver, who is an educator and peace builder, whose keynote is inspiring cooperation on behalf of the common good. She's co-founder of the Global Silent Minute, National Peace Academy USA, Global Alliance for Ministries and Infrastructures for Peace, River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, and was founding executive director of the Peace Alliance. Her work in education, politics, and grassroots community organizing is focused on applied peace building, utilizing a shared responsibility and shared leadership model as she helps to create the conditions for a culture of peace. Well, Dot Maver, thank you for all that. And, and I want to ask how the National Peace Academy and other organizations you work with address this spiritual dimension of climate.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And Rick and Sue, as ShaRon just said, thank you so much. I really, over the years, have said to you, Rick, how many times I love the concept of me to we. Just, it is so beautiful. So, and Sue, thank you for reading that piece from the Earth Charter. You know, the National Peace Academy uses that very definition of peace. So thinking about the spiritual dimensions of climate action, and love the concept of climate collaboratory, let's begin with the moment we are living in right now, the climate we are in immediately. And that's this week, basically, from the new moon on Monday, yesterday, as we experienced the most powerful solar eclipse of the year. And it seemed to have opened a door somehow. And we are approaching solstice, December 21st, this coming Monday. And in the great arc of human evolution, we are in a definite high bell curve moment. It's as big a moment as when Mohammed was here, as when Buddha was born. And if you think of the Star of Bethlehem, the Star of Bethlehem was actually two stars, Saturn and Jupiter. two planets touching, exactly conjunct, that heralded the birth of Jesus. We are living that kind of dynamic moment on the planet right now, crossing a threshold as we approach solstice, because they are touching exactly in Aquarius on the 21st. So what does that say to us as we are in the midst of serious crisis out here? Well, perhaps the heart of humanity is awakening. And crisis, as we know, means both danger and opportunity. The danger of doing business as usual. The opportunity, well, Jupiter itself is all about expansion and expansion of opportunities. So we are crossing the threshold into a new day, where we get to think differently and create differently together. And presently, there's an 11-day event underway. And you can find it at globalfire.earth. That we are engaged with. It's called Enlightening Our Way Together, featuring Indigenous communities around the world as they speak to this moment in time, sharing their wisdom. It includes the prophecies, the plant medicine, and this leads up to solstice and a global silent minute at 9 p.m. GMT, 4 p.m. in New York, when millions on both sides of the veil, in 1 minute of silence as action, will anchor global cooperation, peace, and freedom. And our Indigenous brothers and sisters tell us that this is the new dawn, a new day that will not be followed by night. So that inspires me. And let us take just a moment and unite our hearts across distance as we welcome all those viewing this program as well, and take just a few seconds of silence as action for a culture of peace. Thank you. When we ask what we can do, Rick, together that we can't do on our own, two concordant thoughts, intentional, magnify the potential 7 times. Imagine millions of us. So in 1875, the co-founder of the Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky, she said that spirit is matter at its highest vibration, and matter is spirit at its lowest. So that says to me that whatever we're dealing with out here has to do with both spiritual and material at the same time. And there is no separation. And perhaps that realization is the gift of this challenging time. So let's keep that in mind as we briefly consider an intersection of peace and climate action through the lens of education. And education means to draw forth or lead out. So that implies that each one of us has a unique contribution to offer, has innate wisdom, has a presence and a voice that matters. And so conscious education then is the way through to realize peace on this planet. Living in right relationship with ourselves, with others, with all life. I love the concept of no judgment, but in true cooperation with and among all life, animals, plants, vegetables, minerals, the planet herself. And thinking about all this, and peace begins with me. My inner climate defines my life experience. And education, specifically social emotional skills, inform that inner climate. So climate action also begins with me. And once I experience inner peace, I'll make different decisions, more conscious decisions about outer actions that will ultimately yield a peaceful climate based on cooperation, sharing, loving understanding, and right relationships. So while we've been educating ourselves for decades around the fact of our interconnectedness, COVID has really brought that fact home. We breathe the same air. We're truly interdependent. We drink the same water. We live on the same planet. And so how do we address climate action and peace? What is the intersection? Well, perhaps it is justice. And justice means something different to everyone. Yet peace building focused through a lens of social and racial justice, restorative justice, all voices heard, all needs met, and climate action focused through a lens of climate justice, which is a term that's used to frame global warming as an ethical and political issue, not just a purely environmental or physical issue. So peace begins with me, climate justice begins with me. And the question that faces us, how do we engage directly impacted communities in a solutions-oriented approach? Because we've got massive issues to deal with, and we do not want to repeat that familiar pattern of people outside of a given community saying, this is what you need to do. So we must have a partnership with all communities, including the marginalized communities, so that every voice is heard. No one is left behind. Dialogue, deep listening, and full representation and inclusion. So that inevitably leads us to a shift from human-centric governance to ecocentric, whole systems governance. And Codes for a Healthy Earth offers that kind of look at things. They propose a world water law, recognizing that water is the very source of life. And let me just conclude by saying that when we address the spiritual dimensions of climate change, we do so by honoring our interconnectedness and unity of purpose, as we take shared responsibility for building a world that works for everyone and all life.
So beautiful. And, you know, Dot, I'm so glad that you mentioned about enlightening our way together, because this show and all of the various things that We the World is doing this during these this time, December 11th through the 22nd, it's dedicated, and we are offering it as part of enlightening our way together. So people can, as Dot mentioned, go to globalfire.earth to check that out. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dot, I have to say, I just really appreciate the way you bring in the celestial, the way the universe is lining up for this time. And it just reminds me of one of my favorite songs in college was "This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius." And so here we are. Yes. I
Indeed.
also wanted to mention that the Climate Collaboratory is really probably our primary goal is to, in the words of the Earth Charter, integrate into formal education and lifelong learning the knowledge, values, and skills needed for a sustainable way of life.
Beautiful.
It asks us to provide all, especially children and youth, with educational opportunities that empower them to contribute actively to sustainable development. And so that's something that we can certainly look at. The other is recognize the importance of moral and spiritual education for sustainable living.
Exactly.
And so if we can pull together and really put out some wonderful educational programs together, that would make me a very happy lady. And so I'd like to introduce next Professor Hoda Mahmoudi, who has held the Baha'i Chair for World Peace at the University of Maryland at College Park since 1912. As chair, she studies structural racism and root causes of prejudice, equality of women as a prerequisite to peace, human nature, global governance, and globalization and the environment. As director of this endowed academic program, Professor Mahmoudi collaborates with a wide range of scholars, researchers, and practitioners to advance interdisciplinary analysis and open discourse on global peace. So, Dr. Mahmoudi, how can the Baha'i Chair for World Peace support this spiritual dimension of caring for people and planet?
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being a part of this wonderful, distinguished members of the panel. And what a wonderful program you have. And Rick, I also appreciate your being here with us. I didn't know you were going to join us. It's wonderful. Probably mine is my program. It's a university program. So you understand that we are focused on generating knowledge that really begins to understand especially the interconnectedness of the planet, and that peace, and in particular issues surrounding climate and climate change, are not solvable by any group of countries or any segment of this world. Rather, it requires the entire planet to find ways and means to come together and to figure out how to resolve this problem. So Sue read the 5 areas that we focus on. You know, for example, I just want to briefly say, and until we are able to bring about racial justice, we will not have a peaceful society. Until we have women in full participation in all aspects of the world, there cannot be world peace. Likewise, the responsibilities of the leaders of the world, critical, especially to the issue of climate, is very important. And of course, throughout all of this is what already some of you have so beautifully articulated, which is human nature. Who are we as human beings? And what are we capable of doing in terms of our spiritual development, our ethical and moral considerations for not only the planet and nature, I would say. I don't know, you know, one of the most beautiful things about this planet and nature in particular is that human beings had nothing to do with its development. And I find that so refreshing that, you know, we had nothing to do with it. It was a gorgeous gift that has been given to us. It's really a spiritual gift. And how important it is for us to really learn how to take care of this gift that has been endowed to us, you know. So in my program, we do a lot of education. First of all, the program educates, it does research, and then it publishes. So we want to take knowledge, publish it, and disseminate it. And of course, it's not just among academics, it's whoever is interested in learning about these important things, including climate change. I have to say that in teaching at the university, I find that this younger generation is amazingly on track in relation to what is required of us in order to do something about climate change. And it reminded me of what ShaRon said, and also what Dot said in terms of, it really begins with me. It's a part of my inner self. It's really in the city of my heart, where I have to create the spiritual perspective on the world that says, you know, you are a trustee here, because as a human being, you can either destroy this natural world that's been given to us, or you can take measures to try to mitigate what is happening to this beautiful nature. Having said that, I think the greatest challenge we have is that on the one hand, we are becoming ever more aware, as has been said already, about our interdependence, our interconnections. You know, it's like a web. We are so connected that you flip one part of the web and the whole thing moves, you know, so that's how interconnected we are. And so from a spiritual perspective, to understand that interconnection, that we're all human beings, it doesn't matter what we look like exterior, we are all spiritual human beings, and we are all really here to work together, to collaborate, to remove all the prejudices, all the biases that we have about whatever, about each other, about nature, about whatever. but that it's within our capacity as the trustees of this planet to really take very strong measures, and I think even sacrifice to some level the things that we may be used to, but now we're learning that they are not so helpful to our environment. And as I said, the younger generation in some ways seems to understand this much better and has started taking action in this regard. But I think it also needs cooperation from the public sector, the private sector, leaders of the world, religious people. There's not any group that can be left out of this incredible crisis that we are facing, and that I think nothing short of especially teaching from a very young age what is right and what is wrong in terms of nature, what is right and what is wrong in terms of how we treat one another. In that education, that spiritual, and if people don't have necessarily a spiritual leaning, I would say our values that we agree upon, our ethical or moral considerations, to look at how we can raise generations of children to appreciate their role in particular in tending, nurturing, taking care of this planet, and in all its beauty, including its peoples, in every way. How to tend to it, how to take care of it. It's a huge task. I don't mean to make it sound as if it's a simple task, but I think the most important thing is to raise consciousness, is to continually raise consciousness. And so at the university, we continuously invite individuals who have done very important research in relation to climate and the environment. And we always ask them to please consider the ethical, the moral consideration, and to give us solutions, to tell us from their findings, what can I do? What can we do? What can a university do? What can a neighborhood do around the university? And that way widen the circle of a humanity that is genuinely concerned about this problem and would like to see something profoundly good come about in relation to the change that is required. So yes, it does begin with the individual. It does begin with how we view each other, because I think how we treat each other as human beings is also how we treat nature. If we are harsh on each other, we're going to be harsh on nature, I think. And so again, the program that I work for is basically attempting as best as it can in a university setting, but also disseminating this knowledge really to the world through our YouTube channel, because all of these speakers, their talks are recorded and we put them on our YouTube channel for anyone around the world to look at. And we do have over 50 countries that are now engaged in that process, and we're delighted about that. We're very happy about that. So basically, that's what we do at the University of Maryland at the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. And I really appreciate what you said about asking what an individual can do. And we have in our Climate Collaboratory and this Florida Climate Conversation to Action, we're trying to identify specific actions. We've come up with the Drawdown Eco Challenge as a kind of a playful way that we can each find individual daily actions that we can take, and we make it into a game. So we're keeping score on how we're doing, and we can challenge others. So I'd like to consider challenging the organizations represented here tonight to the Eco Challenge, and we'll send that out and see what we can do with that. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing at the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. And I'd like to introduce Joshua Basofin. He's Director of Climate Action at the Parliament of the World's Religions. And Joshua has worked in the environmental field for over 15 years as an attorney, advocate, sustainability expert, and writer. He started his career in roles with Environment Now and Defenders of Wildlife, focusing on water policy and environmental conservation. Joshua later worked with businesses, local governments, and civil society to develop strategies for systemically reducing their environmental impact. And he's advised organizations independently and on behalf of Beyond Business and Forum for the Future. Joshua is excited to be working with interfaith and faith-based organizations to realize their enormous potential for addressing climate change and committing to actions that help achieve a decarbonized world. Joshua holds a bachelor's degree in English and environmental studies and received a law degree from Chicago-Kent College of Law. Joshua Basofin, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And if you would just tell us about how your interfaith work with climate action at the Parliament of the World's Religions, how does that work? What do you do?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Rick and Sue, for having me on the show. And I'm honored to be here with three very thoughtful and accomplished women. They're a tough act to follow, but I will do my best. I want to kind of come full circle with an idea that ShaRon introduced and that others have referenced about the inner climate, because I think that's such a intuitive and beautiful idea. You know, we have everything we need to decarbonize. We can absorb the technological, economic, and political changes that are needed to transition to this low carbon future. Those are baked in, those are on deck, they're ready. But what we've got to do is, you know, as others have said tonight, is really change our inner climate and understand how we can share with the world what we need to share in a collaborative and communal way in order to make that shift. And the reason that I do the work that I do is because I see that that potential in the faith community. That's really the predicate for the work that I do with Parliament of the World's Religions in our climate action program. There are, I think by some statistics, 6.5 billion people in the world who affiliate with some religious, spiritual, or indigenous tradition. And as far as I know, all of them teach a need to be good stewards of the planet. I haven't come across one yet that says that, you know, we are morally released from a responsibility to care for the planet. So that's powerful, right? I mean, if we can leverage that one idea of planetary stewardship among all of these diverse faiths and religions and aggregate that, I mean, there's a real change to be had there. And so when I think about that inner climate, that moral obligation is a big piece of that. And I think we can really change hearts and minds. And one thing I'm going to say is we often, I think, and I'm guilty of this too, kind of draw lines around certain religions and certain religious communities and say, oh, they're skeptics and they're accepting of, the idea of climate change. And I don't think that is necessarily the way it must be. You know, there are some socio-political realities in the United States with some faith communities, but I'll just give you one example of where I don't think there's an inevitability that we have to be butting heads. I did a big Earth Day event during Earth Week in 2020. And in my research on how faith groups have sort of observed Earth Day, I found that one of the very first statements on Earth Day in 1970 was released by the evangelicals in the United States. Now, the evangelicals are not kind of the usual suspects that we think of being, having a robust sense of planetary stewardship, but this was a very robust statement. And it basically said that we cannot allow the Earth to be despoiled. that we must protect it, and we must keep our waters clean and our air clean, and we must care for each other. And that was powerful. So if you're not familiar with Parliament of the World's Religions, and I know a lot of folks aren't, our history goes back to 1893, to the World's Fair in Chicago. And a lot of folks were coming in from all over the world for this event in Chicago, and some spiritual leaders had an idea to have an interfaith conversation, which at that time was a novelty. I mean, this was the nascence of the interfaith movement. And sorry, I think I said the wrong date. 1893 is the right date. And so we had a Parliament of the World's Religions in 1893 with representatives of, I think, over a dozen different traditions from all over the world. And it was quite successful and quite an interesting idea, well received. And in 1993, some folks in Chicago got together and said, why don't we have a centennial of this? And that launched our organization. So we come out of the tradition of interfaith convening and conversation. And so our mission is to cultivate harmony among the world's religious and spiritual communities and foster their engagement with the world and its guiding institutions in order to achieve a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. And the sustainability part of our mission has really materialized, really materialized in our climate action program. And for all of the reasons that I referenced, the potential that we see in leveraging the power and influence of the global interfaith community is the very reason that we have a robust climate action program. So there's three kind of main strategies that we employ in that program. The first one is convening and facilitating. That is probably the foremost core capability of our organization, having been the conveners of these enormous events over the last century, because we are seeing that so many faith communities, from Sikhs to Catholics to Hindus to Buddhists to Jains to indigenous communities on every continent, are really engaging not just in talking about climate action and thinking about how their traditions relate to the need to address climate action, but actually doing things on the ground, actually mobilizing, educating their communities, engaging in policy advocacy, greening their houses of worship, helping to shift energy infrastructure, pursuing nature-based solutions, changing diets to be more plant-based. So these are like, the really on-the-ground behavior change stuff that we need to see in order to go from, the words of our spiritual leaders to the actual lifestyle changes that are gonna make that shift into a low-carbon future. So that's really important, convening and facilitating, because we bring folks together and we help them share the lessons from their own communities. We also, our second strategy is knowledge sharing and disseminating. We've heard from our global community that it's really important for them to have kind of a 360-degree view of what everyone's doing around the world. And so that's really important, to be a kind of clearinghouse for the kinds of activities and actions that folks are taking all over the world in all these different and diverse communities, and be able to share them with everybody, so that we all in this enormous interfaith community know what the other is doing. And then finally, inspiring action. I have some colleagues at the Forum on Religion and Ecology at Yale University who have, as a project, collected statements from faith leaders all over the world, encouraging their followers and their communities to work on climate. But it doesn't mean anything unless it translates to action. And so we feel it's really important to inspire that action. And so everywhere that we can in our work, we're injecting these calls to, as I said, have a more plant-based diet, work on what you can do to green your congregation, whether that's green Ramadan, or having a lower impact Catholic mass, or putting solar panels on your rooftop if that's possible for you. But to really just be really focused on the action part of this, in addition to invoking the wisdom from our individual traditions. And so one of the things we did in this past year was we recognized that it was the 5-year anniversary of the UN adopting the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're 5 years into a 15-year trajectory, and they sunset in 2030. And we thought, how can we recognize this important moment and do something substantial with regard to the adoption of the anniversary of the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals? And it occurred to us that there's so many faith-based organizations working towards those goals, really concretely working towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we did an 8-month project where we scanned all of these different faith communities, and we picked out some exemplary work that we've been doing. We highlighted those projects, and we also looked at some of the trends that we're seeing, the broader trends in the faith community of how they're working towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Again, looking towards action, because these were all projects that were kind of like on the ground making fiscal changes. And so that's a little bit about the work that we do. We're always expanding our program and looking for new opportunities. So I hope we'll be hearing more from us in the future. Thanks again for having me.
Bravo. Well, it's very exciting to hear all of this. I'm especially interested in your work with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm going to try to explain this briefly here. One of the unique aspects of our Climate Collaboratory is what we call a collaborative storytelling adventure. And we are on the road to 2030 when we're going to win all the Sustainable Development Goals. And then we're on our way to 2050 when we are going to reverse global warming. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. And we are telling a children's story. We want to make it so simple a child can play with this. And so what we've got right now happening in different ways with different groups is the story. We've come through the year 2020, and Rick has been with us every step of the way, coming from the Martin Luther King month in January and February, through the Interfaith Harmony at the first of Harmony Week in the beginning of February, going through March and April with Earth Month, and coming to was the anniversary of Earth Day. And coming through then in September, We the World hosts the 11 Days of Global Unity. We have created in our Climate Collaboratory, or as a corollary of, the 11 Gardens of Global Unity. And what we are doing is planting seed ideas that we would like to see grow between now and 2030. So all of the Sustainable Development Goals, all of those things that you are identifying, Joshua, that we would like to see as seed ideas in our Gardens of Global Unity. And so here we are in December, and the way our story stands at the moment is that we have a solar-powered bullet train about to take off from December 2020, heading into 21. And so again, we'll start with Martin Luther King and go through the Interfaith Harmony Week and into Earth Month. And through the year, we'll be inviting people of all ages to participate in this story that we're telling, because each one of us has our own climate story about what's happening, our inner climate, all the way through those stages to how the climate of the earth is impacted by all of us. And So we're telling the story of the individuals and the collective of, as the Earth Charter says, we are one human family and one Earth community with a common destiny. And so we want the children to know that we are at a critical moment in Earth's history, that some of us have been working on these environmental and social issues for half a century. And we have experience and a little wisdom that we is available to them, but we are creating a network of support for the children and youth, and where we want to empower them to carry this forward in the way that they know. And this is what Hoda was saying, that the children, the young people know exactly what needs to be done. And if we can be there as their support, whatever they need that we can help with, we'll be there. So that's the idea. And so what we are working toward is in April, we want to celebrate with a global nature fest so that everybody is involved in finding their own role in taking care of the planet. So that's kind of where we stand, working our way towards April. And We the World does these Zoom events in a pretty systematic way now, and partnering with Compassion Games, the Sign Network, the Convergence, and Unity Earth, and organizations like yours. It's time. The stars are aligned. The planets are touching, and it is time for something wonderful to happen. And it's just such a thrill to be part of it, because I just feel that the spirit is alive and well, and the times they are a changing. So that's
Yep. And I wanted to mention, Joshua, thank you for joining us. And We the World conducted 2 workshops at the 1999 Parliament of the World's Religions in Cape Town, South Africa. So I don't know if you knew that, but they were actually the first major event that We the World participated in, because we started in 1998. And so in 1999, we did that, and I was part of a delegation with a lot of amazing people like Deborah Moldow and Diane Williams and Jonathan Granoff, and a whole bunch of folks. We went to Cape Town, and we gave Nelson Mandela the Gandhi King Award for Nonviolence. That was part of what we did there. And then we also met the Dalai Lama there. I got to meet the Dalai Lama, which is an amazing experience. And so that was our first connection with the Parliament. And now Audrey Kitagawa, who's the current chair of the Parliament, has been involved quite a bit with We the World, and she was one of the people that helped to launch 11 Days of Global Unity, and as Dot was involved with We the World for all this time as well. But Audrey has been on many of our broadcasts and making that connection too. So I just wanted you to know about that history.
Yeah,
So we're not new to the Parliament.
That's wonderful. I was not aware of those connections, but that's great to know. It's interesting when you work at Parliament. There's so many connections in the world, but I had no idea that you guys were at the 1999 Parliament. I always thought that must have been such an incredible experience to be in South Africa. Hearing Nelson Mandela speak, 4 or 5 years after apartheid ended. I mean, what a just incredibly powerful experience that must have been. So I'm a little bit envious of you.
It was extraordinary. I mean, the conference was just like a once in a lifetime conference. And then after that, we all went out and explored, and we went on a tour of the township in Cape Town. I don't know if people know about that, but that's where, I mean, some people call it Shantytown, but it's like a vast area where people live in these shanties, but they have like their own self-sufficient um, community and world, really, and they have their own local currency in there. It's like different from the currency of South Africa. So it's really an incredible place. And of course, that's where Desmond Tutu has his home. And Desmond Tutu has been a part of, starting with the 11 Days of Global Unity, has been an active collaborator with We the World for many years.
So go ahead, Dot.
Can I just thank you for that, Rick? And yeah, so appreciate the richness of the sharing throughout. Sue, that you're both doing a great job with this inspire, inform, involve, I have to say. So this 11 gardens of global unity. Wow. So for those who are watching, taking this in, and I can only imagine, and I will speak as an educator, you know, your ears perk up and it's like, ooh, how do I find out more about that? So we can get people involved in that, especially when I think of children seeking a way. How wonderful is that, to help tend the garden of Earth? That's beautiful.
I'm glad you get it. It just makes me so happy to think about this. And what I was going to ask is, so we will be getting to April before long. And I would like to feature something from each of you during that month of Earth Month. Goes from this equinox on
Right.
March 21st all the way through Earth Day on April 22nd. And so during that time, we will be having events like this one, or, you know, maybe a workshop from something that's going on in your organization or institution. And just off the top of your head, could you plant a seed idea that we could grow in the Gardens of Global Unity for April?
You're asking us to do that right now?
Yes.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can think of numerous ideas. I'll just name a couple to start. One is with the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, and that ties directly to climate change and peace and climate action and peace and all of that, and the idea of community action, with looking at all of the assets within a community and bringing the children, the schools together to, they could actually start a garden of peace at the school if they don't already have one, in the spirit of tending that garden. And so many schools now are already doing this, where the children can then actually eat from that garden, as well as we move, as Joshua was saying, and more towards plant-based on the planet. But the other thing I want to say is, I heard you say something about a children's book. And I think those educators and parents, all of us who are interested in children's literature, as we cross this threshold from the way we've been living together, particularly in these last centuries, to a place where the stories are about our shared responsibility and our tending to our own garden, which I'll call the garden of the soul, from a spiritual dimension, to tending the actual place where we live, our environment. So I think it's a marvelous idea, and would be happy to have a further conversation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, you know, it might be good for people to know how this all came about. So we had the 11 Days of Global Unity, which goes from September 11th through September 21st, winding up on the International Day of Peace. And out of that developed 11 themes to go with the 11 days. And the themes are unity, interdependence, environment, economic justice, health, children and youth, women, human rights, freedom, disarmament, and peace. And out of those themes, developed 11 campaigns for change with over 600 organizations that are collaborating regarding one or more of those campaigns. And then what Sue did is take that even one step further with the 11 Gardens of Global Unity, where people can actually incubate projects within one or more of these campaigns by planting a seed in the one or more of these Gardens of Global Unity. So it's really blossoming, so to speak, as you can see. And we had our 16th anniversary of 11 Days of Global Unity this past September. But anyway, those ideas sounded great, Dot.
Yeah. So who else has a little seed idea to plant for April?
I have an idea. So one of my favorite things that I discovered at the 2018 Parliament in Toronto is the Climate Ribbon Project. Folks are familiar with that.
I'm not. Please.
So yeah, so the Climate Ribbon Project is this traveling sort of how do you describe it? Traveling art installation / communal engagement piece / kind of climate community center. And the idea is you have a kind of I don't know, I'm Jewish, so to me it kind of looks like a sukkah, like a kind of frame, and people write on these ribbons, these multicolored ribbons, and the thing that they write is what they would most miss in a world that is changed, that's altered by climate change. And it's this kind of communal grieving process where people say, well, I would really miss, skiing if the snow, if the ice pack melted, or I would really miss seeing migratory birds. I would really miss the coral reefs, and it's this like kind of cathartic thing of grieving communally about, what could happen on our planet, the changes that could manifest in our planet, but then you come out of it with kind of a renewed sense of, okay, we need to keep that from, we need to stop that from happening. You come out and you think, okay, what are we going to do? Like, let's get it together. Let's take action. We don't want those things to happen. And so when you mention unity, to me, that's there's a real sense of unity around that because it's kind of a collective process.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Did we meet possibly in Toronto? I was there for the Parliament in 2018.
It's definitely possible. Yeah, it's possible.
I think we might have met there.
I wanted to just add something that I did not go except virtually. And one of the things that I enjoyed so much about the Parliament of the World's Religions was seeing a booth, I think it was from Spiritual Playdate, that was called Youth Truth Booth. And it
That's
was
right.
just a young woman sitting there with her cell phone.
That's right.
Interviewing whoever would come by, and the young people just opened their hearts to what this meant to them, what they want to see, what they wished were happening there. And it's just, that's the kind of climate conversation that we're trying to facilitate. And so it was a wonderful example.
Exactly. And, we collaborated with Sandy Hart, and I forget the name of the woman from Spiritual Playdate now. It's been a while since we connected, but the three organizations, Sandy Hart with the Charter for Compassion and Women and Girls, and we came up with that title, the Youth Truth Booth. And it was an outgrowth of an urgent message from your children, from the that project of
Why
we
don't
the
you
world.
explain what that's about? Because that's a good one too.
Yeah. So the our dear friend who unfortunately has passed at this point, whose name is Carol Hart, she was one of the people who helped to launch Sesame Street, and she was also a filmmaker. You may know a film of hers called For the Next 7 Generations, and it was it was a documentary about the 13 indigenous grandmothers. So that's kind of her background. But in talking and everything, she came up with an idea to have a video series of children 12 years old and younger who are expressing their fears, their concerns, and their hopes for the future of the planet regarding the environment, which of course includes climate change. So we did this project with her, and we interviewed 29 young people, 12 years old down to 5 years old. And if you go to weyourchildren.org, you'll see the result of those interviews in an invitation to children from around the world to record their own videos with their parents or their teachers, where they express themselves in that way. weyourchildren.org now has a compilation of all of these videos that have come around the world in 4 different languages, and Living Peace International picked it up, and now it's in 200 schools around the world. So it's a wonderful children's project where the children, and you know, many of them express what you were talking about there, Joshua, about like what's important to them. Are the tigers important? Are the elephants important? Are the forests important? What will they miss if we don't reverse the climate destruction that we're in the middle of now? So anyway, thanks, Sue. I could talk all night about all these things, but anyway, as we all could.
Okay. Well, back to the gardens. Anybody else want to plant a nice seed idea?
Sue, I can't promise a whole lot, but at the university, we do have not only gardens, including a peace garden, but the students are involved in all sorts of gardens where they're, you know, and these are experiments because University of Maryland is a land grant university and agriculture is a big deal. So you know, with the pandemic, I can't, you know, we can't go on campus. We do everything virtually right now, but I could imagine maybe beginning conversations to see if we could come up with something. And I would like it to be kind of student generated. And I'm teaching a course, you know, I'm teaching a course next semester on the problem of prejudice. And I often get a lot of the students who are from these STEM fields and agriculture. So maybe that there I could see if I can develop something. So
Wonderful. And that would be a perfect partnership with the University of Florida Extension.
Okay.
It's also a land grant university.
Yes.
And the program that I'm working with is called Sustainable Floridians. And it's already in 5 different counties in Florida. And so the program that we're developing is a pilot to take that basic program that's been going for 10 years and add this community-wide climate conversation and the collaborative storytelling, and bring all of that into, you know, into the 2021 land, so that it's going to be different from anything that has existed before. And so the idea of having gardens of global unity wherever you are, they're everywhere, you know, you've got them in your heart.
Yes. May I simply ask if you would send a link to the description of this project?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, you can, right now, probably the best is at climatecollaboratory.org is probably the best one. We do have the program itself is something that is happening on Wednesdays. Our next class is tomorrow evening. And as I mentioned, it's Florida centric, but we do have a global network of support. So if people would like to come and join us, the website for that one is we.net/Florida Climate dash SDGs. And so that's the actual class where we are putting this together month by month, all the way through May. And so we will be developing these gardens of global unity, growing the seed ideas, telling the personal and collective stories, and would just really love to have all of you involved in this. ShaRon, do you have a seed idea you'd like to plant?
Well, I have just been immersed in the glory of listening to everyone's wonderful ideas, and I am consistently amazed at the breadth and depth of Rick's experience around the world and his ability to remember everyone's name from years and years ago, first and last. All to you, Rick. Joshua, Dot, and Hoda, oh, by the way, I'm from Maryland, and I have many people that go to the university or went to the University of Maryland. So hello, neighbor.
Wonderful.
Yes, I'm just really honored to hear all of these wonderful suggestions and programs that you're doing, and the educating and especially engaging our young people. I in my spiritual view, see that people my age, and I believe, Joshua, you may not be in that age of me, just a little bit behind me, but we are a wonderful bridge between the before and the what's coming. And we have historical knowledge about how things used to be recently and how interrupted we've been on keeping the planet healthy. And I think the young people coming in just come in with a natural awareness and reverence for not only our planet, but for the many cultures of people. And I am so blessed to have two young people in my world and be able to work with them. My real contribution, along with the No Judgment, Just Love opportunity, is with communication and conscious communication and effective and compassionate and full-on communication. And I was looking up Dr. Emoto's work with water crystals, where the experiment was that the crystals would change shape depending upon words and emotions that were related to the water. And they made beautiful snowflake-like shapes when kind words, generous words were related to the water. And they dried up and were just horribly deformed when hateful, hurtful words were exposed to the water. Now, I'm not a scientist, so Sue, I would love to have someone who is think this through. But my seed idea is to mimic Dr. Emoto's experiment with our words and how the energy of our words is disruptive of the earth's natural flow. And that when we have arguments and disagreements and outright hateful verbiage toward each other and to ourselves, that words are energy, and that energy does not go away. It just shifts and changes. And I wonder what the effect of our homes or our gardens or our earth in general, how it's affecting our weather patterns, how it's affecting the water, not only how Dr. Emoto did, but just being able to nourish the planet. And And I think that that would be, for me, an interesting seed idea to help people viscerally and tangibly understand that your hateful words, your discourse that isn't focused on learning and appreciating, rather on divisive and degrading, that it has an immediate effect on the environment that we live in.
Powerful. So yes, we can do something with that, and it'll be interesting. I know that we have one friend, Shannon Crossbear, who is a water keeper, and she always reminds us that we are, I don't know if it's 70, 80% water, our bodies. And so knowing that words and thoughts have a visceral effect on us is just very natural, and extending that to the whole planet is easy for me to do. And we'll see if we can find some scientific corroboration for that. Be wonderful. So,
So
Rick,
maybe we can go around and let people know how our viewers can get in touch and collaborate. You know, what can we do together that we can't do on our own, right? So let's see, ShaRon, do you want to start? And we'll just go in the order that we had before.
Okay, thank you, Rick. And hello, TV land, Facebook land. My name is spelled ShaRon, S-H-A, capital R-O-N. And my email is sharon@njjl.world. And NJJL is for No Judgment, Just Love. That's the website as well, www.njjl.world. And I would love for people to get in contact with me to explore having a comfy couch conversation in your community around racial change, around climate, around any conversation that appears to be difficult.
All right, and thank you, ShaRon. How about Dot?
Yes, thank you, Rick and Sue. And ShaRon, as you were just speaking, I'm so deeply moved by the focus on love and the heart. And there's a sense in my world, our world, that I live and move and have my being in, that we've done such a good job developing our mental bodies. Like we're really on track with that. And now we are moving into a time when we will develop the doctrine of the heart. And as we do that together on this planet, oh, it makes my heart sing. Because that, right? That's like where it's at. So you can reach me at DOT at nationalpeaceacademy.us, nationalpeaceacademy.us. And we are in the throes of setting up a series of screenings of John Viscount's short film Admissions. If you go to peacenow.com, you'll see that film there. You can view it with Fred Luskin of Stanford and the Forgiveness Project. And if anyone is interested in doing a screening, and it would be on Zoom, obviously, right now, and we do a panel afterwards. And Fred is part of that and speaks just beautifully from the heart about forgiveness in this time. So that's one of the things. And we also offer numerous programs in collaboration with many of our partners on restorative justice, dealing with bullying and things like that. The Peace Builders Toolbox, think of that. And if you want to chat, get in touch with me. Empathy, de-escalation of violence. We have a police youth dialogue with the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building. They've developed that. We help get the word out about that if people are interested in that. So please, at nationalpeaceacademy.us.
And do you want to say anything about the Global Silent Minute, and especially
Yes,
the Global Silent Minute? Yeah.
I would love to. Thank you. Yeah, and just very briefly, that was originated as the Big Ben Silent Minute. 1917, two officers lying on a battlefield outside Jerusalem, and one said to the other, Tudor, I've had a vision. I will not live through this war. You will. Please find a way to invite me and the millions on the other side of the veil to assist. We can't impose our will, but invite us to assist humankind in ending all war and bringing peace on earth. He died the next day in battle. And 23 years later, Wellesley Tudor started the Global Silent Minute, 1940, when London was being bombed. 9 o'clock every night, BBC would go silent for 1 minute, and the Big Ben bells would ring, and British all over the world supported, FDR supported it, the US supported it. So at the end of the war, a German officer said, we didn't know how to counter that secret weapon of the British. I believe they called it the Silent Minute. So these many years later, we have been inspired, and we started last December 19th, 9 p.m. GMT daily, 1 minute of silence. That's 4 o'clock New York time, 8 a.m. Sydney the next morning right now, for global cooperation, peace, and freedom. And on solstice each year, this is the annual 21st of December, 9 p.m. GMT, please ring a bell, wherever you are, and go into a minute of silence with millions and millions and millions of us around the world. It's growing exponentially. And yeah, may peace prevail on earth.
Definitely, may peace prevail on earth. And Joshua, I'm sorry, no, Hoda.
Thank you. I'm trying to think of what would be useful, and I would like to ask people if they're interested. They can certainly write to us at mahmoudi@umd.edu. If you're interested in our programs, especially on climate action, we would be happy to include you on our mailing list. And if other events come up on campus that have to do with climate education, climate change, climate action, if you just write to me, send me an email, we can put you on a list. Thank you.
Sorry. And now Joshua, yes.
Thank you. This has just been a wonderful conversation. I feel so fortunate to have joined you all, and thank you for everybody for sharing. We have a web hub for our climate program. That's a kind of collaborative space, a collaborative virtual space, and the URL is www.climate. Sorry, what is it? Why am I forgetting it? Yeah, www.climatecommitments.org. It's part of our Climate Commitments project, and it's an interactive web hub. You can sign up and read everything and post to it. It's very collaborative. There's a lot of streaming information. There's also a map of all the organizations in our network and a little bit about what they're doing all over the world. So that's a good way to kind of be in touch and interact. And my email is joshua@parliamentofreligions.org. Thanks.
Okay. And Sue?
Yes, well, my direct email would be Sue Blythe, SUEBLYTHE, at wetheworld.org. And again, you can come to climatecollaboratory.org and learn about what's happening there, or gardensofglobalunity.org.
Lots of ways to get in touch. Exactly. And with We the World, I'll mention a few ways that people can get involved. If you go to we.net, you'll find out the all the different things that are going on there, and that connects to 11 Days of Global Unity. If you want to go there directly, it's 11daysofglobalunity.org, and the 11 is a numeral, 11. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in collaborating with We the World and the We campaign, go to we.net/partner. And there are a few things coming up I wanted to mention. One exciting thing is we're going to be doing our holiday party, which is this Saturday, December 19th, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we're calling it a We Party. And it's going to be online, Zoom. And we'll have wonderful live singing and dancing, fabulous musicians, speakers, performers, activists, meditations, poetry, and so many more things. It's going to be broadcast on Facebook Live, and you can find out more and RSVP by going to facebook.com/thewecampaign, which is where this whole show is being broadcast now. So you just scroll around and you should be able to find it. Another thing I wanted to mention is that in January, we have the Welcome to We show every month. I think I'm going to spotlight myself here so I can talk about this easily. So in January, we'll have our next Welcome to We show, and that will be the third Tuesday of January, January 19th. And it's going to be during this program that we talked about, Martin Luther King Jr. Program. It's called Manifesting the Dream. It'll be right after Martin Luther King weekend. So that's going to be an exciting show where we have all these people that are working on Martin Luther King MLK 40 Days of Peace. And our goal with that is to carry on the work and legacy of Dr. King and to create a world house where we can live all together with the beloved community. Other than that, I think, so why don't we finish up our broadcast, and we like to reinforce this idea of going from a me society to a we society. And our dear friend, Jonathan Granoff, when we launched the We campaign and we.net, his final comment that evening was, I hope that we expands so much that there is no longer any them. So thank you all again so much, and we will connect soon. Bye-bye. It's all about we. Bye-bye.